It is the late of August 2024. Right now we are in the town of Vaasa in Finland, in the western part of Finland. We are in a studio. In the studio on the walls we can see some fiber art. This is the Invisible Cities podcast. My name is Joakim Jocke Finnholm.
My name is Anneli Holmström.
And I'm Jenni Österlund.
Okay, Jenni. So we all know each other, but for those who are unfamiliar with your work and the kind of perhaps, as we were talking about before, you have kind of a lot of different hats going on at the moment, in the sense that you're involved with a lot of. Would you call yourself a cultural producer, in the sense that?
Yeah, I would do that.
So, cultural producer and artist, and you also work in a collaborative way through your project with Biophilia. But maybe you could just give us a brief introduction of, the different kinds of projects that you work with.
Oh wow! Yeah, so I would call myself a performer and fiber artist, and I feel like they're really like opposite directions of each other, and I'm struggling a bit to find some way of connecting them. I don't know if you have to, but it's just whenever I have to introduce myself, I'm like, and I do this, and then I do that, and like, yeah, I feel like it's hard for people to connect it, but I've been working with paper for 3-4 years, and now I've started researching fibers more in general, and including more different kinds of fibers in my work. So at the moment I'm working a lot with textiles and plant fibers, and actually in 2 days I'm leaving for a residency on textile arts. And then on the other end, I work with sound and performance, mostly together with my partner, which I think is really cool to be able to work with someone that I know so well and perform something in stage. And like, except from the performance itself, we're also working as a couple on stage in a way, which I would like to think brings something to the audience. And I'm really interested in performance as it is a way of sharing the experience with the audience live. I think this is actually the reason I do it, because personally, when I watch a painting, it's hard for me to feel something. But with performance, you're sharing something, an experience with a whole group of people, which is so powerful to me. And I would say that's why I do it. And then, apart from my own artistic work, I'm a cultural producer. I work as the manager of Platform, which is an association for arts here in Vaasa. And I got this job right after I took my degree in Jakobstad in 2021, which was really interesting because I don't know anything about producing culture, and still I got a managing position, which was really, like, of course I said yes because it was such a great opportunity, but it was also like I just had to learn from doing. Also because they didn't have anyone hired for me. I was the first employee ever in Platform. So there was no one to instruct me on how to do things. It was just like, so these are the activities we do that, and then like develop the association as you like.
And then we should also maybe mention that you also work for a Collision Arts Festival as well.
Yeah, so true. So we're actually, the studio we are sitting in now is like the Collision Art Collective Studio, which is a collective that I have together with Mikaela Ukeddu, Sara Östman and Jonathan Bäckström. And it's interesting because I mean, we're called a collective, but we haven't really worked together on any artistic project. We became more producers of events. Yeah, and we have arranged a festival in Jakobstad. Yeah.
How many times have you arranged it now?
2 times, although the first time was a bit alternative because there was the pandemic. So what we did is that we rented a studio space in the city center. It was like a store. Yeah. What is it called? Like a business.
I don't know what it was before
space.
actually. This
It was some sort of shop in the city center.
Yeah.
And we were working there, like using it as a studio, but we also did events, small events every week so that a small amount of people could come to every event. And we were running it for almost 3 months. It was really stressful, but I'm happy we did it. It was a cool concept, I would say.
It was good. I really liked it.
Yeah. And then in last year, in May, we did a real, quote, festival, also in Jakobstad. And the goal or the purpose with the collective, and I would say in everything I do, is to create content, cultural activities in small town contexts. Because I feel it's so important that wherever you choose to live, there is something available of quality to take part in. As personally, I call myself a country girl. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't like to live in a big city. I've tried it. It didn't work for me. So it's also, I mean, it's definitely based on my own need for culture and art. But at the same time, I'm bringing it to the other people as well.
And where are you from, Jenni?
I'm from Pedersöre.
Okay, yeah.
From a tiny, tiny village.
Yeah, so as we've outlined, there's kind of like maybe 4 or 5 different kind of projects that you work on at the same time. Do you feel like they kind of feed off of each other? Like, and in what way? I mean...
Yeah, like I said, I feel like it's at least my artistic practices. Sometimes they are hard to connect, but I've also started realizing that I work a lot with the same themes. So in a way, they are definitely connected, even though if you just look at it quickly, it's completely different things.
Yeah, I mean, we could maybe talk a little bit about, seeing as we have the work in front of us at the moment, your kind of making process. So, as you said, you started off working with this paper pulp, but they're kind of often installed in installation context. So you said that you've recently started using plant-based materials in the paper making process. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how your work's shifting recently. And
yeah. Well, actually, if I look at since I started with paper and until now, I've always wanted to be a painter, because I feel like that's just what you should do, and that's the pressure that all my family and relatives have put on me. It's like, if you're gonna be an artist, at least make something nice. But yeah, then I discovered paper pulp during exchange year in Italy. This really grumpy teacher who didn't speak English. I really hated this class, but then when I went home, I was like, you're not gonna win. I'm gonna make paper and I'm gonna enjoy it. And so I started, and yeah, I wanted to be a painter, but I never felt connected with painting, because I feel like the paintbrush is such a wall between me and the work, while I felt like pulp is so... I love to touch the material. It's a whole experience, and the texture of the work is so important for me. And even though I'm not usually letting people touch my art, but I feel like you can still kind of get an idea of what it would feel like.
I mean, maybe just to say that a lot of the paperwork is quite sort of roughly handled. You know, it's not this sort of. It doesn't look anything like industrial paper. It has this sort of. Well, for me at least, I think about the making process when I'm looking at the works because it has this sort of like rough, grainy kind of texture to it.
Yeah, it's easy to imagine the process in a way. But yeah, so I started using pulp as my paint, and I started sort of painting with the pulp, which was fun for a while, and it was a way of like handling, processing the pandemic, to just make beautiful, colorful things. But then recently, actually, I would say at the same time that I moved into the studio and got the like mental space to start thinking about what I'm doing, I kind of abandoned the just making beautiful things kind of thought processes. And now I've started working more research based and more I have an idea with what I'm making, but I still feel like as I am a woman with all of this pressure from the society, I still want to make beautiful things, but it's more it's more research based. I have more thought process behind it.
Yeah, just thinking about this this connection to gender and your work. Your most recent work is called The Female Urge to Identify as a Garden. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that exhibition and what it looks like.
So at the moment, I would say most of my work is based on this narrative that is a female artist living in a small town context and the challenges with that. And so the female urge to identify as a garden, I just heard this, or I read it on the internet, the female urge to identify as a garden, and I felt immediately attracted to this sentence, and I was like, this means something to me, but I don't know what yet. So basically the work is, I would say, me trying to find out what it means to have an urge to identify as a garden. And I started reading, and I read this avhandling thesis called "The Garden as a Feminine Space," which was so eye-opening. And so the work is also about the garden as a space where women can either feel freedom and like self-exploration and identifying with your surroundings, but it can also be a space of oppressing women, basically. And so the exhibition is a fiber installation where I've kind of deconstructed the garden, and I'm exhibiting these different layers where you can identify yourself, basically. And yeah, I also work a lot with identity, as I am a female artist. I live in a small place. I'm from a linguistic minority. I'm always questioning myself and my choices of where I live and my choice to be an artist. Yeah.
But that's something interesting. How did you choose to become an artist, and why did you do that?
Yeah, that's I don't know if I even chose it, but I come from a musical background. So my teenage years is like I spent it on band practice. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I moved to Jakobstad just working. And then I had these friends studying at Novia, studying music, and I was like, wow, you can actually study that. So my plan was actually to apply to the music department. But then I realized, there is also a fine arts education. And I had been painting a bit, so I just thought I would apply. And then in the end, I ended up not going to the interview for the music education. I went instead to fine arts because I realized it's easier to integrate music into your art than it is integrating fine arts into music, because they are much more pretentious and they have much more rules in music that I didn't want to follow. So that's also why I'm really happy to work with performance and sound, because I feel like it's a way of like bringing out my musical background in the way that I choose without rules. Just creating my own kind of music, even though I wouldn't call it that.
Yeah, so the work that you do with biophilia, maybe you could also explain what the word biophilia means.
Yeah, so biophilia is actually my bachelor project. And biophilia is also something I found online, and I'm like, what is this? I have to do something about this. I want to know what it is. So biophilia is the biological human urge or need to be close to nature. And I don't know, I don't think it's scientifically proved that we have this need, but yeah, some people believe this and it's a whole theory around it. And I definitely feel it because, I had the forest in my backyard growing up and it was my playground. And so this performance actually, or it's split in 3 parts. There's a video work, then there's the performance, and then there is this xylophone instrument that I built from wooden logs. And so the performance itself represents the me reconnecting with nature, because I feel like when I was young, I was playing in the forest and something happened. I grew up and I didn't have the same need to interact with nature. So the performance is like my reconnection with nature. And then there is a video work connected to the performance. We don't always use it, but in the original project. And it symbolizes the human's curiosity on nature and how we interact with nature, basically, in a way. We feel like we are definitely superior to nature, and that we are observing it, and it's not a mutual interaction. And then there's the xylophone, which is the power balance. We just cut down trees like we own the whole world, and do whatever we want with it. And that's also, of course, it's me like playing on the xylophone. It's not a very mutual interaction, I would say.
But if you could describe the sound of what it sounds like, I mean, to me, it sounds very like this sort of woody glockenspiel sounds combined with something electronic, I suppose. I'm not really sure what the process is.
As it's a collaboration with my partner, Michele Okeddu. He's an electronic musician, sound artist. And so basically I'm playing the xylophone, which is reacting with his system, creating this other sound as a reaction on what I'm playing. Sort of amplifying, but
But it's interesting, this thing about talking about trying to feel closer to nature and like what allows that. I mean, I think in Finland, people are really lucky that they have access, to natural spaces that don't have this sort of human hand, very visible. But I mean, I can imagine that. So, for instance, recently with the biophilia work that was presented outside as well, isn't often, from what I've understood, the performance is also presented outside of a building, for instance, or like in an outdoor space. Is that something that you're interested in, the context of where it's performed and how that can?
Yeah. So last week was the first time we performed it outdoors.
Right.
And I think that's also the reason why we chose to not use the video work, because basically the whole surrounding is a backdrop or video work. And I feel it's definitely where it's supposed to be performed, because that's also kind of a biophilic thing, that you bring something indoors and you're like, we love nature. But then it's like in this really weird, unnatural place. So yeah, it was definitely the right place to perform it.
Yeah, I think it's a nice context as well, because it's like you say, if you're in a black box, there can be, obviously there's a sort of exotifying happening because it's happening in your head, imagining nature and all the good memories that you've had. And but when it's performed outside, I imagine you make that connection quite quickly, because, you're kind of sitting in amongst trees or outdoors, I think.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of bringing every kind of art into a white cube and putting it on a pedestal, sort of worshipping it, but in a really unnatural position. I just think some pieces of art can't be brought inside or put in a place where they don't belong.
Yeah. And of course, it's a different kind of thing when you're presenting the paperworks. Perhaps the experience changes when they're in the white cube, but in a positive way, perhaps, because it takes out all the background noise, and you can really focus on the materials and the qualities of the relationships between the objects and the space.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely different when I presented specifically this last work about feeling an urge to identify as a garden and the garden space, because even though Vaasa is not a big place, it's still a town. There are houses and big streets and whatever, and at the moment I don't have the possibility to have my own garden. So it was actually nice, because one visitor during the exhibition asked, "So you have your own garden?" And I said no. And that's probably why I did this work, because I'm creating my own little garden. And obviously I would prefer to have a real garden outdoors. But until then, I'm just creating my own little paper garden.
But I like this metaphor of gardening as well, though. It's also a way of controlling or adapting nature to to your needs or to your aesthetics, or
definitely, yeah.
I also see a connection to producing through curating. Curating is to take care of things, also to grow things. So I see the connection between gardening and working as a producer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So how do you organize your time with all these things? This is a kind of more practical question, but do you have a day in the week that's your studio time, and then a certain amount of days that are for, how does it work?
I try to have a more organized time, but then in the end everything floats together in a way that I don't necessarily like. But I feel like arts is such a floating thing that you can't really control, and artists especially are uncontrollable. And since I work with artists, I have to be flexible. But yeah, I work in platform 60%, so 3 times per day. And then the other 40%, I try to be in the studio. So that would be 2 days a week, including weekends most of the time.
So what are some of the best things about working at Platform, and what are some of the more challenging aspects?
I would say the best thing is definitely meeting the artists. Yeah, I do economics, I do coordination, but the best thing is definitely to build a relationship with the artists in residence and the artist community in Vaasa. And I think that's also one thing that is so nice about an association, that you have members and you have people who will keep coming to your events. So you're creating this community. And I think that's definitely the best part of it.
I suppose when we're talking about working as an artist in Ostrobotnia as well, the artist in residence program for Platform is really great because it's an international residency program. We have artists coming from all over. So I think it gives us also a picture of like a, kind of different context of working and, even just...
Yeah, I love Ostrobotnia. I have to say that. But it can definitely become a bubble. And it's so refreshing to have people come here with their other ways of viewing things, new perspectives. Yeah, I think it's very important. And I think it's actually pretty impressive that we have so many residencies in Vaasa.
It's true,
yeah, it's important.
So why do you like working as an artist in Ostrobotnia then? Is there...
Well, I don't necessarily like it.
But you like Ostrobotnia also.
But yeah, I want to live here. So I just have to learn how to do it and how to like it. I will not always love it, but yeah, I've chosen that this is my place, and then I have to do the best of it. But I like the possibilities it brings when a place is a certain size, because you have the possibility to make an impact. And I feel like it's the correct size to be able to create something and cultivate something, grow something, and people will know and people will take part of it. And yeah, I would say it's easy to make an impact.
Yeah, I guess, and examples like with Collision Festival and working with the town of Jakobstad, and that perhaps it doesn't become so bureaucratic. I mean, I don't know what your process was like, but I imagine that it's that they were quite supportive to give you in the last Collision Arts Festivals in Brunkis, in the old fire station building, which is a fantastic architecture and like space to have that project. But I suppose in some ways working in a smaller size population context, these things become a bit more easier to handle, perhaps.
Yeah, because you will always know who to contact to reach a certain result, so to say. But then if I turn it and look at it from the other side, I also feel like this can be a problem, that whenever you create something, it's probably going to be the only similar project that is going on at the moment, which means it will also be the best at the moment, which I feel the result of that is that you can do whatever. You don't have to, I'm not talking about a specific project, but you don't have to push yourself to the limit to make a extremely professional event or project or whatever, because it's still going to be the best I think this is a bit problematic because it means that maybe people will stop making an effort because it's still going to be the best. And I think it's something to be mindful about. I mean, I'm not saying that people are not trying to do their best. I'm just saying that, there's no one.
No competition.
Yeah, exactly. Which can be a good thing as well, but
I guess like too much comfort isn't necessarily always great for creativity, isn't it? You know, that sometimes. Although there's also a limit to this too, because artists are often very overworked. So but I know what you mean. I think sometimes it's like, or perhaps even just like positioning yourself in relation to something else that's going on that's similar means that you think about it differently, or you know, which is why, like you said, like building artistic community is so important, because then you have artists to compare against, even in your own work. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think this podcast is also really great. Like just someone who's communicating what is going on and keeping up a discussion about it is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's funny though, because at openings you don't necessarily always have the chance to talk about your work as well. You know, because maybe you're just catching up with people. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, you will always end up working with your friends, which can also have both positive and negative sides to it. And also another thing I've been thinking about working in a small context is that, and I used to compare it to being a teenager who want to change your style. Like now I want to change from a metalhead to someone who likes punk, is that everyone will notice, like, okay, this person now
that is really true,
did a whole makeover. And I feel like it's same with art. You're like, now I want to be someone else. But it's so difficult because everyone knows you and they're like, okay, so now you change style.
There's a real lack of anonymity that I noticed moving to Ostrobotnia, actually, you know, because because the community is a lot smaller, like people are a lot more aware of the changes that happen. And
and I feel that can be limiting sometimes.
Yeah, what do you think's limiting about it? Like that?
Just that it can be a bit scary to show yourself in a way, and also to be vulnerable and to speak about more hard subjects. Like now, for example, I've been working on it in my head for a long time, but I'm planning to get into debt, which is really, complicated, and I would touch on a lot of my relationships to my family, which is also like so. I mean, I don't want to talk about my family in that vulnerable way when everyone is gonna see it. You know, it's like my colleagues, my friends, everyone is gonna know.
And there's a possibility that people know your family and
exactly.
these kinds of things, of course. I think it's often the difficulty with artists and working with personal subjects, though, is that kind of line between respecting the people that are involved and also making sure that you're that you feel okay about these feelings and stuff. But honesty is also such an important part of art making. So you can't always choose what you're interested in or where the work's going.
Of course.
Is this work that you're thinking about now, or is it like kind of it's the beginning of an idea?
In the future.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometime when I processed everything.
In winter. Let's not talk about winter.
I was thinking here now, talking with you, that you mentioned this about managing time, and this is something that a lot of the other guests in our podcast has been talking about, like managing time and the space. There was one artist working from home and having her studio in her kitchen, which blurs out the lines between the home and the studio, but also the work and the free time. And as an artist, can we have free time, or are we always working?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I'm a person who wakes up in the middle of the night with an idea and I have to write it down. So it's like, and I mean, I can't tell myself, I will write this down later. Now it's my free time. I will go back to sleep, because then I will forget it. I think it's really hard to have free time. I was just in vacation and I had a little bit of a crisis, because I realized that I don't have any hobbies. Because everything I love is art and culture. So, I mean, with that said, I do want to have free time, but it's hard. And yeah, especially because you're always thinking, and you never know what thoughts are going to be useful for your art.
And also this thing with the hobby, that if you get a hobby, then you will include it into the art somehow,
exactly.
because you want to do it.
Exactly, yeah.
In Edinburgh, there's this artist-run association that has a choir, and I think it came out of that idea that, you know, like that people don't have any hobbies apart from art. So yeah, it's this sort of choir group that they do as part of the association, where people come together and just like sing.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I think maybe Platform should have a choir. Yeah.
And how have they managed to keep it separate, or has it become somebody's
probably
artwork?
start appearing as some performance. I haven't followed up on it. I have to find out.
Yeah, because it's also like in this day and time, if you're good at something, the first thought is going to be, let's make money out of this.
Yeah, monetize.
Yeah, maybe a hobby is like when you accept yourself as an amateur for whatever you're doing, you know.
Yeah, we actually had this discussion at the dinner table with some friends, that a hobby is something you don't get paid for.
Yeah. We're also doing it badly. That's why I like karaoke so much. No one ever wants to come to karaoke. But do you give yourself days off from Platform? Do you actually have vacation with Platform?
Yeah, with Platform I have vacation for 1 month, which is really nice. But it's also like every time I have some free time, like Christmas holiday or my summer vacation, I'm like, the first thought is, okay, I should use this time to go to the studio. But I know that's not healthy, and I would say I'm pretty good at putting boundaries.
I suppose now you have a studio that's, I don't know where you were working before.
I was working in my kitchen table.
Yep. So another one working at the kitchen. So now you have this space that's kind of separate. I'm sure that'll probably change the way that you kind of separate things.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I work better here in general, just because I'm a messy person and I love to leave half-done projects on the floor or on the table. But in the kitchen table, someone is gonna get upset.
Is there any upcoming projects or anything that you would like to talk about?
Well, I'm going on a residency, as I mentioned, but I will probably, or I will be working with kind of the same themes, just female artist, small town context, the challenges you face.
And was it in Italy that you're?
No, it's in Norway, and it's in a old textile factory. So the residency is inviting artists who work with textile or women's work history, which is very much what I'm into right now.
Maybe we could talk briefly about that.
Yeah.
So Jenni, you mentioned that you've got this residency coming up. Could you maybe tell us a bit about where the residency is and perhaps the project that you've got in mind for that?
Yeah. So I'm going to Norway. It's a village called Salhus, just outside of Bergen, and it's so beautiful. Watching the pictures, it's this old textile factory down by the fjord that they now turned into a museum on textile production and women's work history, as there were mostly women working in this factory. And so now they're running a residency there. And I'm actually really honored to have gotten this possibility, because I had just started working with textiles when I applied and got this residency. So I feel like this is also, I mean, I have used textile now in my previous exhibition, but I feel like this is the first time that I will have this space, time and space, to just sit down and research the material and just learn more about it. And I will be working with, like, on the theme of women in rural or urban contexts, as it's something that I also identify with. And also the material as a domesticated material, something that we use every day and that I feel like throughout history has been not as valued as typical male materials. And just like working with the idea of women's work as something that have to be decorative or like useful. Mm-hmm. So I think the idea is to make unuseful textile works that reflects on women's.
Because you have in the
history.
past worked with this kind of fast fashion culture, right? Like where, if I understood correctly, one of your paper making pieces was using clothing from other participants, or yeah.
Well, that's actually the first time that I used textile, and it was in another residency in Sardinia, and I asked the public to bring their old clothes that were not useful anymore to them, and so I recycled their clothes into works that reflected on consumerism.
And this textile, or the residency that was in an old textile factory, how recently was that closed, you know?
I don't know that.
I'm just wondering if it's sort of this mass-produced textile factory, or whether it's the kind of older...
Well, it's definitely the older, yeah.
It sounds like a perfect residency for you, though, working with these things.
I'm super excited.
This was today's episode of the podcast of Invisible Cities. We will now spend about an hour driving back to Jakobstad from Vaasa. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. My name is Joakim Jukki Finnholm.
My name is Anneli Holmström.
Jenni Österlund, thank you.
Bye-bye.